Good evening and welcome to Congresswoman Niki Tsongas' telephone town hall meeting. This telephone town hall is like a traditional town hall. It gives you a chance to hear from Congresswoman Tsongas about issues before Congress or anything that's on your mind from the convenience of your own home. And in just a few minutes, the Congresswoman will be giving a few brief opening remarks, and then you'll have a chance to ask a question. If you'd like to ask a question at any point during the town meeting, simply press *3 on your phone and you'll be connected to one of the Congresswoman's staff members. And in order to get to as many questions as possible over the course of the next hour, we will not be able to take follow-up questions. So please try to ask your full question when you come on the line with the Congresswoman. I do need to add one quick technical issue that sometimes there will be a little bit of lag time between questions, so please stay with us if there's a brief pause in the discussion as we move to the next question. And if we are unable to get to your questions this evening, please stay on the line at the end of the call and you'll have a chance to leave a voicemail for the Congresswoman, which we will respond to as soon as possible. We will try to get to as many questions as we can over the course of the next hour. So again, if you would like to ask the Congresswoman a question, please press *3 on your phone now, and you can ask your question and then listen in on the rest of the call, and we'll get to your question as soon as possible. And with that, I will turn it over to the Congresswoman.
Good evening, and thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Technology makes this kind of virtual town hall possible, where we can call you, reach you in your home, and have the opportunity to have a discussion for the next hour on issues that are on your minds. I know there are many, and as you heard from Katie Enos, who introduced this session, we will try to answer as many questions as possible during the next hour. So to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your phone. As you know, we are now on day 7 of the federal government shutdown, and it is, of course, the biggest issue we're currently facing here in Washington. We're focused on reopening the government, and I think, as we all do, there's a great need for us to come together on a long-term budget solution so that we do not continue to confront these crises over and over again. I've been hearing from many of you over the past week, constituents throughout the district, and I share your concerns about the impasse in Congress. I think there's been a lot of information and misinformation put out over the past few weeks about the government shutdown, how it came about. So I really wanted to hold this town hall, this teletown hall, so I could help answer questions you might have and clarify the situation as best as possible. So I look forward to taking some of your questions related to the shutdown and talking about how we can move forward as a Congress and as a country. First and foremost, let me just tell you a little bit about how we got to this point. On October 1, the United States government shut down, taking hundreds of thousands of federal employees off the job, delaying vital public services that we all depend upon, and in doing so, impacting millions of Americans. Simply put, the shutdown happened because Congress failed to pass a temporary spending bill to keep the government running. We have a fiscal year that goes October 1st of one year to September 31 of the next year, and we have to put in place a spending plan as the new fiscal year comes along. Having failed to pass a long-term bill, we need to pass a short-term one known as a continuing resolution, or CR. I'm sure you hear that term often. These short-term funding bills serve only one purpose: to keep the government open at current funding levels, giving elected officials from both parties more time to negotiate a longer-term funding agreement. This is the exact course that newly elected House Republicans, Senate Democrats, and the White House agreed to in early 2011, which yielded a compromise funding bill that reflected part of what each wanted without shutting down the government. Again, to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your telephone. However, in the weeks leading up to October 1 of this year, leaders across the aisle, Republican leaders in the United States House of Representatives, decided to use a potential shutdown as leverage to force changes to a democratically enacted law they didn't like, the Affordable Care Act. So instead of agreeing to pass a clean funding bill, or CR, that is one with no political strings attached, a clean bill to keep the government open, They instead insisted upon attaching provisions to the bill to delay or dismantle the Affordable Care Act. The Senate voted upon these provisions and rejected them, sending a clean bill back to the House each time. And in the days leading up to the shutdown and every day since, House leadership has refused to allow the House to take a vote even one time on the Senate-passed funding bill. Amidst all this disagreement, there is one indisputable fact. A majority of the Senate voted to reject the House's provisions, but the House has never been allowed. We have not been allowed even one up or down vote on the Senate-passed funding bill, the only bill that could reopen the government. And it is also now clear that there are enough votes to pass it were it to be brought to the House floor. Virtually every Democrat has said that they would vote for such a bill, and there are a growing number of Republicans, almost 24 now, who have said that they would support a clean funding bill. I firmly believe this vote can no longer be delayed, then the public agrees. A recent survey on my website showed that 88% agree that Speaker John Boehner should allow the House to vote on a straightforward government funding bill with no strings attached. As I said, roughly 24 House Republicans have publicly said the same, calling on Speaker Boehner to bring the bill to the floor for a vote. And all of my Democratic colleagues, we have all signed on to a letter saying that were that bill brought to the floor, we would support it. So as a reminder, if you'd like to ask me a question or give your input at any point, just press *3 on your phone. The core argument from Republicans has been their desire to delay, defund, or repeal the Affordable Care Act, popularly known as Obamacare. To date, Republicans have unsuccessfully made more than 40 attempts to do just that. We have had 40 pieces of legislation brought to the floor to repeal, defund, or delay the Affordable Care Act. I, for one, support continuing to fine-tune the Accountable Care Act so that it can best serve the American people. It's not a perfect bill, we all know that, but I don't believe this debate should come at the expense of a functioning government and the strength of our economy. I don't believe that one half of our legislative branch in the House of Representatives, I don't believe they should be immobilizing the government or threatening to default on bills that we've already incurred simply because they don't like the Affordable Care Act. It was passed by both houses of Congress. It was signed by the President after more than a year of debate. It was considered by 5 separate committees of record straight 25 days on the Senate floor for debate, and the inclusion of hundreds of amendments from both sides of the aisle was the process that led to its passing and becoming law. Its constitutionality was affirmed by the Supreme Court in an opinion written by Chief Justice John Roberts, somebody who is quite conservative. And then again, it was hotly debated during the presidential election, where its repeal was the number one item on the Republican agenda. A majority of voters elected to keep our president in office, knowing that by doing so they were rejecting repeal. So the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land, as Speaker Boehner has said himself. And fundamentally what it does is make sure that middle-income Americans, people who cannot look to the safety net provided by programs like Medicaid, will always be able to get insurance. It won't matter if you have a pre-existing condition or you lose a job or are struggling to pay college tuition and make ends meet. Starting now, you will always have the reassurance that you will be able to buy health insurance. It means that women who have historically had to pay higher premiums or been more easily denied health care will be treated equally. It means that young people up to the age of 26 will be covered on their parents' policies. It means that you will never again have a lifetime cap. If you have a particularly debilitating illness, the insurance company will not say after a certain point, we will no longer help cover your health care costs. So despite the efforts of House Republicans, the Affordable Care Act exchanges opened for business last week. A shutdown was never going to change that. And in just the first 24 hours, the National Exchange website was visited by 4.7 million visitors. And in Massachusetts, where we've had an exchange for years, thousands began the process of signing up for expanded care. And if you have any interest, the website at the federal level is healthcare.gov. Detractors had turned the numerous benefits of the Affordable Care Act upside down by barraging the media and the public with misinformation, I think causing a lot of negative reactions to a bill that in many cases I believe are unwarranted. So I think it's time now to let the bill operate and work across the aisle to implement and improve it. In the end, what we need is a long-term solution to create a long-term plan as to how to fund government, one that will require both sides of the aisle to come together, give up something that they hold dear in order to come up with something that is fair, balanced, reasoned, and puts us on a sustained path of economic growth. Again, in order to ask me a question or give your input, just press *3 on your telephone. With that, I'm going to turn it over to your questions and look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thank you, Congresswoman. And we are getting a lot of questions in here, so we're going to try to get through as many as we can. We'd like to start with Terry from Clinton. Terry, you're on the line with the Congresswoman.
Congressman Tsongas, my first question to you, and most importantly, my important question to you is, if you're so confident about Obamacare, and let me tell you, by the way, Congressman Tsongas, I've been a Democrat all my life, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm very unhappy with this current administration and with the Democrats in Congress and in the presidency. But if you think so highly of this Obama bill, why doesn't Congress sign up for it? Why are unions allowed to opt out? Large companies allowed to opt out? Congress does not want to sign up for it. The IRS, who's going to be implementing it, wants nothing to do with it. If it's such a fabulous bill, why does nobody seem to want it? Why does the president allow these people to opt out, but not us? We're stuck with it.
Well, thank you, Terry, for your question, because it's a question that I get quite often, and I believe it's rooted in some misinformation that's being given out there. Everybody in this country, the individual mandate is part of the bill that says, as a country moving forward, in order for us to implement the many insurance reforms that are in place, we need everybody to come in and purchase insurance. That is true for me as a member of Congress. It is true for my staff. It is true for all of us as Americans, and it has been the subject of great debate. But the reality is I am subjected to the individual mandate, as we in Massachusetts have been as a result of the reform that Massachusetts put in place about 5 or 6 years ago, that all of us, as we file our taxes, have to demonstrate that we are covered by health insurance of one kind or another, whether it comes from our employers, which is where most Americans get their health insurance, and I'm not sure where you would get yours, whether it's from Medicare, where many seniors get their health insurance, or whether it's from somebody who goes into the Massachusetts Exchange to buy insurance because they either do not get it through their employer, they're an individual who, for one reason or another, has no other access to it. They're maybe perhaps employed by a small business that does not furnish health insurance. I, and my staff, like every other American, is going to have to demonstrate that I have health care coverage, that I am an insured individual. And I, for one, would never go without insurance because I know from my husband's many years of care just how important it is and what a tremendous drain it can be on the family's resources if they're not covered by health insurance. So the underlying goal really was to find a mechanism to also make health insurance affordable for those who would like to have insurance but simply can't afford it. So the exchanges offer up a variety of health insurance plans, and there is a process for recognizing that for some people it's very difficult to afford, and so through some multiplier of the poverty rate, there will be subsidies to help people purchase insurance. Where this gets complicated for members of Congress and our staff is that as the Accountable Care Act was being implemented, Senator Grassley from Iowa said, well, if these exchanges are such good things, then rather than get your insurance as a federal government employee, which my staff certainly is, and which once elected I was treated as a federal employee. So as I've been in Congress, I have purchased insurance through my employer, the federal government. And there's an exchange in which federal employees go in, they figure out what health insurance plan is best for them, and they make a decision that that's the insurance we want. They pay, and I would pay 25% of that premium. The federal government, as my employer, would pay 75%. Every employer does this differently, but most Americans get insurance through their employers, which helps them purchase it because it's not affordable without the employer contribution. But as a result of the Accountable Care Act, Senator Grassley said, well, no, we're going to no longer get it through the federal employee health benefit plan. I'm no longer going to join postal workers and workers in our court system and people who issue passports and all the other things that federal workers do. We are all, just as members of Congress, are no longer eligible to get health insurance as a federal employee. We will have to go to an exchange that's administered by the District of Columbia. That's true for me. It's true for all my staff, whether they're here or in Washington or back in Massachusetts. And we will look at what the various plans are. We will purchase some insurance. Each of us will make up our own decision as to what is most affordable, and we will then purchase insurance because under the individual mandate we have to do that. And I think most Americans really want to be able to demonstrate that they have insurance. The federal government will, however, continue to provide the employer contribution, because we remain federal employees even though we are not eligible to go onto the exchange. So I think what has been a little bit obfuscated out there are a number of things. One, do we have to show that we have insurance? Absolutely. If somebody chooses not to have insurance, they will be subject to the penalty. If they choose to purchase insurance through the exchange, which actually I think is a good thing, I don't think it's a bad thing for us to have to see how these exchanges are operating and whether they work the way they're supposed to work, and there's nothing like having to do it ourselves to learn that. But I do think it's fair for the employer to continue to make a contribution to the purchase of that health insurance. I know for my staff, when they came to work for me, that was one of the benefits that they were going to receive. I think most Americans, when they go to get a job, look to see what their employer will be doing to help them with their health insurance. So I don't believe that staff members, young staff that work for me should be treated any differently than any other federal employee.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, if you have a question for the Congresswoman, please feel free to press *3 on your phone, and you can ask your question. We do have a number of people who are waiting to ask their questions, so we're going to move along here to Colleen from Haverhill. Colleen, you should be live with the Congresswoman.
Hi.
Good morning. Good evening, Colleen.
I was just wondering if it's very important to have insurance, and the government's shut down because of this bill, basically. Why isn't Congress stopping their paychecks because right now the government's still technically running. Only 17% of it's shut down. So why are you still getting paid when you guys are the ones who are shutting it down?
Well, that's a good question. The reality is the salaries for members of Congress is actually mandated by the Constitution. So absent a decision by a member of Congress to not accept their pay, the Constitution mandates that a member of Congress be paid. In 2011, when we were confronting a shutdown, I co-sponsored legislation that would deny members of Congress pay during any period when the government was shut down. So this year, as the government has shut down, I joined my colleagues in introducing that same piece of legislation. It's titled the No Government, No Pay Act of 2013. And while that legislation is not yet the law, I felt it was important to put my money where my mouth was. So I will not be accepting pay, and it will be returned to the Treasury going forward for the duration of the shutdown.
Thank you for that question. As a reminder, you can press *3 if you'd like to ask the Congresswoman a question. Now we're going to turn to Stephen from Fitchburg. Stephen, you're on the line.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you, Representative Tsongas, for this opportunity.
Good evening, Stephen.
I was going to ask why we couldn't do a straight-up vote on the budget, strip out the issues about the health care. But I do want to encourage you that you're doing a good job, and I like the Democrats have stuck to their ground this time. I'm very pleased about that. Thank you. So is there anything that we can do to force this vote?
Well, I think it's very important to continue to register your belief that it is possible, and it should be a clean funding resolution that should be brought to the floor of the House. You are not alone. As I said in my opening remarks, we did a survey on my website just to see where people were, constituents were, and 88% agreed that Speaker Boehner should allow the House to vote on a straightforward government funding bill with no strings attached. We know we have the vote. 200 Democrats signed on to a letter saying that they would support a clean funding bill. 195 of them can vote on legislation that comes before the House, and we know there's roughly 24, 25 House Republicans that we know of who've been vocal and open about their willingness to support a clean funding bill. The challenge is getting Speaker Boehner just simply to bring that piece of legislation to the floor. If he were to bring it tonight, the shutdown would end. We would vote it. It would go to the House, where we know there's support for it, and the president would sign it into law, and the shutdown would be behind us. So I think he instead what he's doing is bringing small little pieces. They've been using a piecemeal approach that really makes political points. They're sham pieces of legislation. They are substantively. They're meant to look like one thing when they really are wholly inadequate and bad for Americans, bad for our economy, and don't do what they pretend to do. So I couldn't agree with you more. I just think the American public and all of you who agree have to just continue to send that message to those who are resisting voting on a clean bill.
And I would just add that you can participate in that survey that's on the Congresswoman's website by going to tsongas.house.gov. And now we're going to turn to Brian from Gardner. Brian, you're on the line with the Congresswoman.
Hello.
Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Rep. I'm trying to figure, are they going to hold it to the 17th or what? What are we going to do?
Well, it remains to be seen. I know that, as I just said, we could vote on a clean continuing resolution today, and it would end the shutdown today, because if they were to bring it to the floor, because there are simply enough votes to do that, both with Democrats and Republican support. We would resolve this immediately. And there's really no question that we have to find a way to bring down our deficit, but the debt ceiling, and that's, again, where health care, the debt ceiling is being held hostage to those larger issues, and we can ill afford to have the debt ceiling be used as leverage for that, what is a very political agenda, because it puts our entire economy at risk. And it's especially troubling when our economy is showing signs of growth. Some of the actions we've taken have really begun to slow the growth of our debt and our deficit. We see our housing market coming back. We see more revenue coming into the federal government because we eliminated the Bush tax cuts for high-income earners. There have been cuts to government spending. The Budget Control Act put in place $1.2 trillion worth of cuts. Sequestration adds to that. I'm not a fan of sequestration. I think we have to fix it. But in the near term, it has cut government spending. And our stock market is rebounding, although as the shutdown goes on, and as concerns about whether or not we'll be able to vote on raising the debt ceiling, there will be a clean vote on that. It's starting to tremble a little bit. So I think we've got to stay at this. We've got to find a way to bring a debt ceiling vote to the floor that, again, is not held hostage by other agendas. We can deal with those separately. It's entirely appropriate to look for ways to fix the Accountable Care Act. I certainly am one who would endorse revisiting the medical device tax. It was written too broadly and it hurts small startup companies. I think we're going to learn a lot as we go forward, that there are tweaks that we have to make, but I don't think the proper way is to either hold raising the debt ceiling, which we have to remember is to honor commitments and expenditures we have already made. It does not open the door to increase spending. It simply honors spending that is already in place. We cannot use that, the need to raise that as hostage to all these other larger issues.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, if you'd like to ask the Congresswoman a question, please press *3 on your phone. And we're turning this over to Roger from Lowell. Roger, you're on the line with the Congresswoman.
Your turn.
Hello?
Yes, good evening. Roger?
Yes, Representative Tsongas. Thank
Yes.
you for doing a good job, and I appreciate this opportunity to discuss this with you. Now, it does seem strange that the House leadership is stalling the budget over something which is not a budgetary matter. There's agreement on the budget. The only disagreement is on a legislative matter, which really, in my opinion, doesn't follow with this procedure. But the question I had was sort of a technical one. I understand that the House and the Senate both have passed budgets, but the Republicans in both houses prevented a conference committee from being established that had the job to do what's supposed to be being done right now, which is to formalize a real budget for the government this year.
Well, I give you great credit for being so well informed about the process here in Washington, because you're absolutely right. The normal, what we call, is the term of art called regular order, but the normal process would be that the House would pass a budget. They did pass a budget. We give it colloquially the name the Ryan budget because I happen to believe there are altogether too many cuts to the non-defense, the discretionary side of the budget. Too many cuts, so I could not support it. But nevertheless, it did pass, and the Senate itself has passed a budget. In fact, the senators' legislation was passed that said if they didn't pass a budget, they would not get paid. Well, they did pass a budget for the first time in many years. So the normal process would then be to take those two different budgets to a conference committee, which consists of members from the House of Representatives, members from the Senate, on both Democrats and Republicans, and to resolve their differences. I have seen that work over and over again as a member of the House Armed Services Committee, where the House of Representatives passes a bill, the Senate passes a bill, we go to conference, we resolve our differences. Sometimes we get to, we have to swallow a bitter pill. There's something in there we don't like, but we also can celebrate the things we feel very strongly about that are often included. And then that compromise bill is brought to each floor, the floor of the House, the floor of the Senate, and is voted upon up or down, and it passes every year. That is really what my Republican colleagues have refused to do in this instance. My House Republican members will not go to a conference, and instead they're using the funding of government or the raising of the debt limit as holding them hostage to larger issues that they have not been able to deal with legislatively. Well, in the long run, what we need is a long-term solution. We need to end the sequester, which is the across-the-board budget cuts that are accumulatively doing great harm, and stop using temporary stopgap measures, as the continuing resolution does. We need a long-term budget solution that includes targeted spending cuts. There are places where we can cut government spending, but we need new revenue sources as well. And every bipartisan group that has looked at this problem has said this is the only reasonable way forward. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, if you have a question for the Congresswoman, please press *3 on your phone, and we'll turn it over to Charlene from Marlboro. Charlene?
Oh, thank you very much, Congresswoman, for taking the time to talk with us. I was a Democrat since 1976. Since I voted for Jimmy Carter. I'm no longer a Democrat because I'm very disillusioned and disgusted with the Democratic Party and their spendthrift ways. I was a conservative Democrat, but basically what I wanted to mention was I pay for my health care. I pay a lot for my health care, and I'm not part of Obama's clique where that has gotten waivers. So my perspective is either everyone has to be in Obamacare or everyone should have a delay at least a year, because I think the other people have been delayed a year. So that's basically what I want fairness, and I'm not seeing any fairness. I'm seeing brute partiality, and I'm seeing brute force with this World War II memorial. That's disgusting. What's happening to the veterans as far as it being closed, and I would really appreciate it if maybe you could, make your presence known as far as that memorial is concerned, and basically that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, Charlene, I'm sorry we lost you as a Democrat, but I appreciate your willingness to hear me through this teletown hall and to call in. I think it was unfortunate that the shutdown in government coincided with the fact that so many veterans were coming to Washington. I happened to see a large group of them arriving at the airport. They were coming in from Arkansas. There was a band playing, clearly, very elderly gentlemen primarily who were so proud of their service and so glad to be coming together and coming to Washington. And it's unfortunate that it did coincide with the government shutdown. But I do know, and because that memorial is under the auspices of the national park, there were part of the furloughing took place for employees that are national park employees. But I do know an effort was made to accommodate them, and that they were allowed into the memorial, because it is, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it is really quite remarkable and a real testament to their great service. My father, in fact, was a survivor of the bombing of Pearl Harbor and went on to engineer runways across the South Pacific as we made our way across finally to achieve victory, but at great cost across the South Pacific. So I'm very proud of all that our veterans, and especially our World War II veterans, who are now, not so many left, are doing, and glad they were coming to Washington, and glad that despite the shutdown, they were able to find a way forward. I think the issue of health care is one that resonates deeply with all of us. We all feel and know we have to have it, for those of us who have a means of paying for it, either through our employer or whether it's through individual, and we're able to make that payment. But there are many, many Americans who would like to have health insurance who simply can't afford it, and not having it ends up costing all of us. Because people will go too long, get too sick, end up in the emergency room. We are a humane country. We treat people who need health care, and then we absorb the cost to those who cannot pay because they have no insurance. And the other reality is that the health care costs are the leading cause of bankruptcy in this country. So many, many Americans who don't have health insurance and who do try to pay their bills end up becoming bankrupt as a result of the health care costs when they face an extreme emergency. So the goal here really was to address a lot of issues. And it is about creating access for the millions who don't have health insurance because they can't afford it. But it's also about putting in place a lot of reforms that help and benefit every one of us. So as a woman, you might have been subjected to gender rating, in which you could have been charged up to 4 times as much as a man for the same health insurance. That will no longer be allowed. If you had an enduring illness, you could face a lifetime cap, where once the insurance company had paid up to that amount, it wasn't going to pay any longer. If you lost your job and lost your insurance and had a pre-existing condition, you could be denied coverage altogether. All of those things are changing as a result of the Accountable Care Act. And it is made possible. Those things are expensive. Those things cost a lot of money. And it's been made possible by the fact, and we in Massachusetts tried it first, and it worked. 98% of this Commonwealth, 98% of the people are now covered. But you have to get everybody into the system. You have to get the many well people into the system so that you can provide all those benefits to the others who might need more care. And the individual mandate I've come to look at, especially for young people, as paying it forward. You may not need health care today when you're 20, but you're going to need it when you're 40 or 50 or 60. And it's an acknowledgement that down the road, you will receive that what you need to be kept well. So important for our families, so important for individuals. Do I think we need to change some of it? I do. And time will take care of that. But last week, in the first 24 hours of it, I think about 4.7 million people went online to sort of see what the opportunities were. And I think even for somebody like you who purchases your own health insurance, if you go to the exchanges, you might see something that's more affordable. It may not be subsidized because your income is thankfully larger, but there may be packages of health coverage that really do suit your needs and cost you less.
Great, thanks for that. We have a lot of questions here from folks, so I'm going to try to get through as many as we can. We're going to go to Glenn from Gardner next. Glenn, you are on the line with the Congresswoman.
Thank you. Nikki.
Good evening, Glenn.
As I told the young lady that I spoke to earlier, what I'd like to know is when President Obama is going to stop capitulating to the Republican Party. Their hypocrisy is just ludicrous. The Affordable Care Act was written by the same person that wrote the Romney Care Act for Massachusetts. It's an entirely Republican bill. President Obama had the opportunity to stand up and fight and show some spine and, just fight for what was closer to universal health care. And he chose not to. And he's done the same thing over and over and over again. I'm an independent. Mm-hmm. And, I campaigned for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
In Gardner, along with Jen Flanagan and a Republican. I'm almost embarrassed to say it.
Well, thank you.
He was a good one.
And I feel very fortunate to be representing Gardner now, because the district now goes from Haverhill in the east to Gardner in the west, and then down to Clinton, Marlborough. So it encompasses about 725,000 people, and I feel grateful to represent this district. But you raise an interesting point, in that the Accountable Care Act was modeled after that which we did here in Massachusetts. And what we did here in Massachusetts was basically came out of the Heritage Foundation. It's a conservative Republican think tank here in Washington. And it looked at how to provide access to health insurance for all of the Commonwealth while keeping in place private insurance companies. And so the model was created in which you created an individual mandate saying everybody had to have insurance, but to get that insurance, if you weren't covered by a government program like Medicare, or if you weren't covered by your employer, that you would go into an exchange where you would purchase private insurance. So it is very much a Republican idea. And yes, there was a big, robust debate around whether or not to have a public option even within the exchange. So that would have been a government-funded health insurance within the exchange, and there just wasn't the majority to support that. So that is an argument yet to come as we implement the Accountable Care Act, see how well it's working, try to control the costs and the growth in healthcare itself, because that's actually reflected in the premiums that we pay, and then take a look at whether or not this is really working in achieving the goals that we've set out, which is expanded access to insurance, but also tremendous health insurance reforms that benefit every American.
Great. Thank you for that question. And now we are going to go to Jane from Haverhill. Jane, you are on the line with the Congresswoman.
I think my question was already answered. I was asking about, is Congress being, not Congress necessarily, but this, federal employees, are they being paid while they're out? Are they still getting their benefits and so on and so forth?
They actually are not. If you're a furloughed employee, you are not being paid. But last week on Saturday, we did vote on a piece of legislation called the Federal Employee Retroactive Pay Fairness Act to make sure that all federal employees receive their back pay once the federal government reopens, regardless of their furlough status. As you probably know, about 800,000 federal workers across this country, all of whom work hard to make our nation safer, a better place to live, would otherwise lose their pay because they have been furloughed as a result of the government shutdown. But this bill passed the House of Representatives, actually strongly bipartisan. Virtually everybody voted for it. and it will make its way to the Senate, and I think the President has said that he would sign it. So while the furlough and the shutdown are something we've got to resolve, I think it's some comfort to furloughed employees that they will get their back pay.
Thank you for that question. Next, we're going to go to John from Haverhill. John, you're on the line with the Congresswoman.
Congresswoman, good evening, and thank you so much for taking my call.
Good evening, John.
Congresswoman, you mentioned earlier on that you had signatures from Democratic representatives and even some Republican representatives who, if given the opportunity, would vote this past them right now and that the government shutdown would be averted. My question is there any legal reason why the Speaker is disallowing this?
Well, he has absolute control over the flow of legislation to the floor of the House. There is something called the discharge petition, which we can all sign and have signed in the past to say we would like to have a vote on whatever the particular piece of legislation is. It's timely. It takes about a month to what we call ripen to get to the place, but it would have to have a majority signature. And I know the Democrats would sign that. I don't know whether you would get sufficient number of House Republicans to sign it, despite the fact that they have said, should a bill come to a clean funding bill come to the floor, they would vote for it. But fundamentally, the party of the majority controls the flow of legislation. They control it in the committees. They control what legislation we consider in the committee, what kind of hearings we have. They control what kind of amendments are offered in the committee. They control what pieces of legislation we were presented with to vote out of the committee. Then they control which legislation comes to the floor of the House for a vote, what kind of amendments will be offered on the floor of the House. So as a result of that control, it's written into the system we have. Mr. Boehner really holds all the cards, unless the American people just register over and over again their dismay, not only with him, but with the portion of his party that makes it very difficult for him to bring this to the floor. It's going to take outside pressure from all the American citizens to force Mr. Boehner's hand. And it is my great hope that it will happen sooner rather than later, because if he would bring that piece of legislation to the floor, we could vote on it tonight, send it to the Senate, the President would sign it, and we'd be open for business tomorrow.
Great. Thank you for that question. We're going to go to John from Clinton next. John, you're live with the Congresswoman.
This Congressman?
Yes.
All I want, that gentleman just asked my question. I want them to take a vote like everybody else. I'm in favor of Obamacare. That's already law.
It is law, and we see with the numbers of, well, two things. I should tell a story. There was a letter to the editor of the Lawrence Eagle Tribune from a woman who said, I'm happy with Obamacare. She said for the past 2 years, she has 2 young people in her family, 2 college grads, who have been on her insurance plan, and that was made possible as a result of Obamacare, in which students can stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. She said we've saved over $4,000. One of her kids was in a car accident, was hit by a car. Another one of her kids had a gallbladder surgery. The hospital bills were over $50,000, and because they could stay on their parents' plan, they were covered.
Great. Thank you. We're going to go to Annie from Fitchburg next. Annie, you should be live with the Congresswoman.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for taking my call.
Good evening, Annie.
Good evening. I wanted to ask why the President asked Congress for to go past the debt ceiling when he can just do it. He doesn't have to ask their permission. And I know he does it out of goodwill so that it is crossing the line and trying to be civil about these things. But the time for being civil has long passed. And I think the President should just run what he can do without having to go there for these types of things. And the Affordable Care Act is the most the greatest thing that he can give the country, like we've all had it here. And, I mean, it couldn't be better. I just don't know why that point is not getting to people. And I really think that it should be more pointed to the people. And I'm very upset about the millions of people that have already had their Affordable Care Act. They're getting off of it. This person, that person, this company, and that company is very disheartening. Thank
you. Well,
again.
That's really interesting because I just happened to see an article about somebody brought up the issue of Walmart, and I went looking to look at an article, and in fact, what Walmart has done is they have made more of their employees full time so that they can offer health care. They see it as a way in which to attract longer-term employees. They see a real benefit to their business to provide health care to their workers. And that is actually what happened in Massachusetts as well. When Massachusetts implemented its insurance reform, the finding was that actually more employers offered health insurance to their employees. Often it said, it's going to lead to people leaving, many employers dropping their health insurance, where it was quite the opposite in Massachusetts. And I think the Walmart story is a very positive one. So I think we need to let this play itself out. Give it some time to be implemented. We see the millions of Americans who are going online to learn more about it. We will see over time how many people enroll. We will begin to hear from them what their experiences have been. And then as time goes on, we will fine-tune the Accountable Care Act. We know there need to be changes. Medicare is not what it was when it was first enacted. Experience is, you learn a lot from experience, but you also can't, because there will be some unintended consequences, you can't then stop and say, we're not going to try to do this. It's too important. It's important for creating access, and it's important for the tremendous insurance reforms that benefit every American. In terms of the debt ceiling, I think hopefully it will not come to a place where our president is forced to just raise it because of drastic economic consequences. I hold out hope that Mr. Boehner will do the right thing for this country and bring a debt ceiling vote to the floor that is not laden down with a lot of partisan policy issues that need to be dealt with separately.
Thank you. Now we're going to turn to Jim from Lowell. Jim, you are on the line with the Congresswoman.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm excellent, Congresswoman. You don't know how difficult it is to sit and listen to everybody and listen, and you want to jump in and you keep hitting the button. They say, you're already online, Jim. You have to hold up. Congresswoman, thank you for your opportunity to speak to us all. I have to disagree with you. I couldn't disagree with you more. I, for one, as an independent, I couldn't be happier that we're doing this. I don't want a straight line vote. This is one of the few opportunities we have to force the president's hand to come to the table. He's gone out of his way not to negotiate with the Republicans. I'm not a Republican. He's gone out of his way. I feel the Affordable Care Act is going to do nothing but raise the price for everyone. Everyone's saying what a panacea it is that I've heard so far on this phone call, this town meeting. I don't see it happening. What I see is socialized medicine, and anywhere you go in the world, Congresswoman, like you go to England, go to Canada, go to Cuba, they have socialized medicine. And where do they come when they need an operation? They come here. So I think they're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and they're going to bring this Obamacare in. And your own party said it's a train wreck waiting to happen. Thank you. Would you like to comment?
Yes, Jim. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience in hanging on. I don't think linking the two is the important way to go ahead. We've seen the consequences of shutting down government, whether it's just simply the fact that World War II veterans had trouble getting to the memorial that they had made a long trip to come see. And that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. So shutting down government is never the constructive way to go forward. The president has negotiated with Speaker Boehner. Lost in this discussion is the fact that the continuing resolution is at a funding level. It's called a sequester level. It incorporates the across-the-board cuts that are so harmful to so many, and so it incorporates those cuts. Do we want to keep them in place for the long term? I don't, absolutely not. But in recognition of the need to keep government funded, he was willing to do that for the short term in order to have time to further negotiate what a long-term budget would look down. And the harm of the shutdown, or the harm of not raising the debt ceiling especially, would be so grave to our economy. We have to remember where we've been and how far we have come. And we have an economy that is now showing signs of growth. It's actually been pretty resilient in the face of all the back and forth here in D.C. But to allow us to default on our debt would be irresponsible and reckless, with consequences, many, many consequences, hard to imagine for real people. I'm not against working on the Accountable Care Act at all, but I don't think they should be linked together. I think they have to be done separately, and in the meantime, we have to keep government funded, and we have to recognize that we've made a commitment. We've spent dollars already, that we have to honor that which we owe. It's like any one of us, when we borrow money from the bank and we don't pay our mortgage, we know what the consequences are. And failure to raise the debt ceiling will have untold consequences for all Americans, most immediately in the impact on interest rates for any kind of borrowing any one of us does, whether it's for a mortgage, whether it's through our credit card, whether it's for student loans, whatever it may be, the consequences will be real.
Great. We're going to turn to Michael from Gardner. Michael from Gardner, you're live with the Congresswoman.
Hi. I'd like to thank the Congresswoman for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. Congresswoman, I had a question that was obviously answered earlier, which was if we had the majority of votes in the House of Representatives to pass a bill, why was it being held back? And you explained it quite clearly that the GOP, the majority of the House, the Speaker, is actually holding it back, or holding back the ability to present the bill. One thing then that comes to mind is, I think people are forgetting, and I'd like to ask the gentleman, I think it was from Lowell, who said that Obamacare is a train wreck, to actually look back historically 30, 40 years ago. Companies had like an unwritten agreement that when you worked for them, you were provided health care or support for health care. Throughout the years since then, that has eroded. We have now partial payment by companies, with families now paying 50, 60, even greater. And I've seen that personally in my lifetime while working. And one of the things I've seen locally here impacted is our local hospitals. Here we have Henry Haywood Memorial Hospital and nearby Athol Memorial. And those two hospitals, I know from personal acquaintances that the people who work there, that they are being inundated with people who are uninsured, young families or individuals that don't have full coverage health care, and they're being the local hospitals are carrying the burden of this, and it's causing jobs to be lost or services to be shut down. And I think today healthcare is like education. It has to be one of those things in that the country affords every citizen, and we can't allow free enterprise in the healthcare system any longer because of the way the prices keep going up. It's too extravagant for any family to support. And one of the things I'd, again, like to bring to mind to everyone is, we're in what I would consider the second Great Recession or Depression. Back in the times of Roosevelt, we had public works programs that would help those who are unemployed, help those individuals that needed food, support, shelter. We're in this, it's an 8-year cycle that we're in at least, not a 4-year like people thought 4 years ago. So anyways, those are just my comments, and I'm just disappointed with the Republican Party. I'm not a Republican, but I got plenty of friends who are, and they're fed up with the way the Speaker is holding the country hostage right now, and the economy. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. And you remind us in your comments, I think, that we have been through some tough times economically. I mean, we've been through some really tough times economically, like we haven't seen in our lifetime. And we're just, beginning to show signs of recovery. We've seen the housing market beginning to come back. I mean, some of it depends on where you live, but in general, housing prices are starting to come back. There is more revenue coming into the federal budget because of the Bush tax cuts that we eliminated for high-income earners. That has made a difference. We have cut government spending through the Budget Control Act and through sequestration, which I don't endorse. And the stock market has been rebounding, but has been a little shaky with the shutdown in government and with fears about what we will do about raising the debt limit. So we can ill afford to send shock waves through an economy that has just seen some really hard times and is just beginning to show signs of life. I mean, that sort of doesn't get focused on as much as it should as we're having this discussion. And you're right about so many hospitals that have to absorb those who don't have any insurance. It's a hardship on the hospital. They do get payments from the state to help offset that. It does affect their reimbursement rates. But the reality is, if we can get more Americans insured, those hospitals will get reimbursed for the services that they deliver. And the rising cost of health care has made this hard on everyone. If you're an employer trying to do the right thing, it gets harder. If your economic picture is not so great, you want to do the right thing by your employees, but you simply can't. You either require a larger contribution from the employee, or you have higher deductibles or higher copays. All of this makes it harder on the employee and the individual who seeks coverage. So Accountable Care Act is a desire to expand coverage and get people insured, but it's also an effort to begin to address the cost of health care so that we can begin to moderate health care costs themselves so that health insurance premiums don't continue rising. And we're just beginning that experiment. The exchange is opened. Millions of Americans went to look about buying health insurance. We will see how it's going to go. And then these reforms are going to make their way out, and we will have to measure their impact. So we'll be prepared to tweak. We know that we're going to have to do that, but I don't think we should hold the functioning of government and paying our debts hostage to the beginning implementation of the Accountable Care Act. So with that, I want to thank all of you who have participated tonight. We're running out of time, but it's been great to have so many of you with so many very passionate, well-informed comments. This discussion was so useful to me, as it always is when I hear directly about matters of things that you really care about. If I didn't have a chance to get to your question this evening, there will be an opportunity to leave me a voicemail in just a minute, and my office will be happy to get back to you on your question. It's very important that if you want to get a response to your question, that you leave your name, your address, your phone number, and email address. And you can also visit my website at www.tsongas.house.gov or follow me on Facebook and Twitter to learn more about what I'm working on or to let me know your thoughts or questions. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/repsongas and on Twitter at Niki in the House. So thanks again for choosing to participate tonight, and let's remember, go Red Sox. Thanks again.